The shocking truth about Tim Burton's artistic decline. How does a guy go from this
It's showtime.
to this? Pee-wee's Big Pee-wee Adventure. In 1985, Burton makes his first feature-length film. I'm 8 years old at the time. As an 8-year-old, I thought it was really weird. I never understood Pee Wee Herman. But it cost $7 million and made $40 million. So it gave Burton some clout. Before this movie, he had been a disgruntled Disney cartoonist, I think, and also had made a short film called Franken Weener. But what's notable is that this is the movie where Tim Burton was united with Danny Elfman. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was also Danny Elfman's first big break. Before this movie, Danny Elfman was in a band called Oingo Boingo, and I think his only movie appearance was in his brother's movie Forbidden Zone, in which Danny Elfman supplied the music and played, as a character, he played Satan. So this movie was fairly forgettable, but it demonstrated Tim Burton and Danny Elfman's abilities and talents to some degree. Beetlejuice. 1988, I was 10, and this movie was a mind-blowing masterpiece. It cost $15 million, made $74 million, and I would put this 80s movie up against Ghostbusters or Back to the Future. Between the music and the directing and Michael Keaton's performance, it was just, they were all at their best. Equally powerful, though, and ignored, though, is the incredible story, the incredible screenplay, the incredibly original story without which none of this could have happened. Tim Burton is visual in the same way that Danny Elfman is musical, in that neither of them can do anything without a good story. Or let's just say neither of them can make movies without a story. So if Pee-wee's Big Adventure had gotten Tim Burton and Danny Elfman's feet into the door, then Beetlejuice certainly gave them clout now. I suppose it's hard to talk about Tim Burton's career without talking about Danny Elfman's career. Batman, starring Jack Nicholson. Comes out in 89, I'm 12 years old at the time. Interestingly, on the posters before the movie came out, I didn't recognize that it was a bat symbol. I thought it looked like teeth. I only saw the gold, and I thought it was like a gold mouth. One of the guys who wrote the screenplay for Beetlejuice also wrote the screenplay for Batman. This movie was obviously a huge success. We had not seen a superhero movie on this scale. It did so well since Superman. I wouldn't put this movie in Tim Burton's top 5. It seems like there was a lot of studio involvement. I don't like Prince. It was very, very commercial. But the score was beautiful, and when Tim Burton at the top of his game, visually wonderful, perfect for the choice to direct Batman. If Pee-wee's Big Adventure had made Tim Burton and Danny Elfman got their feet into the door, and Beetlejuice had given them some clout, then this movie made them put them on the A-list. Edwars Scissorhands came out in 1990. I believe I saw it in Florida. I live in Toronto. I was 13. A commercial and critical success. Tim Burton would now continue to sort of own the early 90s. I believe this movie, more than any other, is Tim Burton's masterpiece, since he actually thought up the original idea, as well as the idea proving to end up as a great movie. Again, Tim Burton is at his best, and Johnny Depp, I think this was kind of his first... Yeah, this was his first breakthrough role, I guess. Aside, Crybaby wasn't really a breakthrough role, which came out the same year. And also, Danny Elfman was at his best. Danny Elfman was also branching out into other great successes in which he was at his best, such as writing the theme song for The Simpsons and for Tales from the Crypt. Also, probably one of the last times we saw Vincent Price before he died. Batman Returns. Now this movie is his most interesting of all. This is my favorite Tim Burton movie. The screenplay was written by the same guy who wrote the screenplay for Heathers, which explains why it's so damn intelligent and so satirical and so hilarious. This movie's better than the first Batman in every way. But getting back to the point that he had a great writer reminds us that Tim Burton is only as good as the writers he gets for the movies. Considering the writing, I just wish Tim Burton had directed the Christopher Nolan movies, but with the Christopher Nolan writers. But back to the writing. Okay, so the guy that wrote the screenplay, his name is Daniel Waters, who again wrote the screenplay for Heathers. And this story, not only is the story amazing, but it's got some of the coolest dialogue that has ever been in a movie. And I'm going to give 3 examples. This bimbo character, she goes, okay, so she's talking to herself. She goes, okay, so the tree lights up and then I press the button, or I press the button and then the tree lights up. Another great example, some young chick comes up to the penguin and goes, you are the coolest role model a young person could have. And the penguin says, and you're the hottest young person a role model could have. And one of my favorites of all time, his speech to the penguins. He goes, my dear penguins, we stand on a great threshold. It's okay to be scared. Many of you won't be coming back. Thanks to Batman, the time has come to punish all God's children. First, second, third, and fourth born. Why be biased? Male and female, the sexes are equal, with their erogenous zones blown sky high. However, the movie failed financially compared to Batman, and this marks the point where he stopped caring. The Nightmare Before Christmas. So Batman Returns really put Tim Burton into a depression where he almost wanted to quit directing movies entirely. But I don't know what happened where he came up with this one. Maybe he thought, screw it, I'm not going to do commercial movies anymore. I'll do something I'm really passionate about. I often wondered, what is it about these directors where they make all these great movies like Martin Scorsese, and then all of a sudden they just stop. It's like they stop caring and they just make crap. And I read an interview with Quentin Tarantino around that time where he said that it's that they make something that's really special to them and nobody likes it, and then they decide they're never going to try it. They're never going to put their heart in ever again. So maybe Nightmare Before Christmas was Tim Burton's last attempt to really put his heart into something. But unlike Scissorhands, I don't think he had a very good scriptwriter. To say it's a bad movie, I mean, it has all the right ingredients, but it just doesn't... Okay, I'll tell you what the main failing of this movie is, and that's the music. The music is terrible. Danny Elfman obviously makes great theme songs, but I guess it's different. I guess he's just not very good at writing songs themselves, especially songs with singing in them. I was like, there's no way Danny Elfman wrote the lyrics for this. He did. I just looked it up. He did write the lyrics. Oh, and Tim Burton didn't technically direct it, so I guess he was still grieving over Batman Returns. It was a commercial success, but not by much. But a reminder to me that Batman Returns was his last great movie, and he would never make a great movie again after that. So that's the end of his great genius era and the beginning of his second era. Edward. Okay, so the movie has a terrible title. Very boring. Critics love it. I don't understand. I mean, it's a fun little drama, I guess. I don't know. But whether you agree with me that it was not a big deal, I think you can agree that it wasn't the Tim Burton fantastical, magical kind of stuff that we were used to, and I was certainly expecting. But that era was over because Tim Burton had learned his lesson that, he can't really do his visions anymore, and he just has to, I don't even know. I think he was still figuring out what kind of director he was going to be since, Hollywood had broken his heart after Batman Returns. I called it his second era because he still hadn't completely given up. Because, this movie, for example, he still put care and love into it. And because it's still a good movie. It's just not anything like he had made, during his first era. Mars Attacks. So this was a great movie. Of course, not great the way his great movies were great, but it was great the way he was kind of sticking it to Hollywood, getting all these stars together to make the most expensive B movie ever made. He's basically poking fun at Hollywood, which was awesome. But in a way, I think he was kind of just not even trying. He was just like, let's just see what I can get away with. This was 96. I was 19 and I still had a lot of love for and belief in Tim Burton as a director. And so I just loved this movie at the time. And there's an amazing line in the movie where a dude goes, "But didn't I always tell you, honey, if I just stayed in place and never spoke up, good things were bound to happen." This was the best movie he had made or would ever make again since Batman Returns, in my opinion. I say in my opinion because so many people think Ed Wood is a masterpiece and I don't get it, but whatever, I'll give them that. However, at the time I didn't realize that Tim Burton was so cooked. He was so done. So I had a lot of faith in him still. Sleepy, hollow. Ironically, two words, or appropriately, two words that perfectly describe Tim Burton at this point in his career. Sleepy and hollow. If you've watched the original Disney Sleepy Hollow animation cartoon, you'd know that this doesn't follow that story at all. And that story was a masterpiece. I don't know what the original story was, but I have a feeling this one strays enormously from it. And this movie should have been a warning that Tim Burton's about to start ripping off everything that is Tim Burton-esque. We're going to be getting things like Willy Wonka. We're going to be getting things like the dreaded Alice in Wonderland. Oh my God, what we're in for. But this is like he's telling us, this is where I'm going, buddy. Everybody who loves me and believes in me, I'm going to lead you right into the toilet. I forgot to mention that The Nightmare Before Christmas was so bad that I don't even remember how it ended. I don't remember how this one, like, even barely what happens. There's like a headless horseman, he's got teeth, and then he finally gets the witch that screwed his life up, and then it's over. I have no idea. This thing was a mess. Planet of the Apes. Also a very appropriate title for this point in Tim Burton's career, because he's no longer making... This is one of his first endeavors where he tries to make a movie for the masses. In other words, the apes. For the planet of the apes. Instead of for himself or for his niche. So I guess Tim Burton was toying with making commercial films without doing any work that he doesn't really care about. But at the time, 2001, I was still on board the Tim Burton. I still had hope and belief and love for Tim Burton. So the movie was pretty boring. Tim Roth was incredible as the villain, and I think the villain's name was Thade. I thought the time travel elements were really well done, in terms of just story-wise. And I have no other thoughts than that. Big Fishy. Something fishy's going on here. 2003's. I go to the theater with my friend to see it, and my friend is also a huge Tim Burton fan, a believer still. We're still believers in Tim Burton, and we liked it. We found it enjoyable. In retrospect, I would say it's the second of his three more serious toned movies. The first being Ed Wood, Big Fish being second, and third being that Big Eyes thing. Not a bad movie, not a good movie. Kind of a sleepy and hollow movie. You know what, I take that back. It was a good movie. It's just not a great movie. And it certainly wasn't like the kind of Tim Burton movie. In retrospect, I say. At the time, I'm just like, yeah, this is good. It's a good movie. And I still think it's a good movie. You know, I'd even go so far as to say that, would I recommend it? I would say yes. What I'm actually thinking and trying to figure out is, where is Tim Burton's mind as he makes these movies? Because he goes from Sleepy Hollow to then to this, which isn't half bad, to then another bad movie. Is he flip-flopping like that other director does, like a lot of these directors do, where they make a personal movie and then they make a commercially successful movie in order to finance their artistic movie? Is that what he's doing? Like, what is he thinking? Where is he in his development, his career as a career director? Because in this movie, I don't think he's given up yet. And when I watched this movie, I hadn't given up yet. Charlie and the Chocolat. What was I saying about being confused about where he was going in his career? I went to see Charlie and the Chocolate with the same friend who I had seen Big Fish with. And we both sat there, and as soon as Willy Wonka showed up, we just sort of looked at each other and, like, really awkwardly. What the hell is this? I'm not sure we sat through the whole movie or not. But I think afterwards we were just like, we both felt ripped off and kind of, what do you call it when you get, we felt violated. And I would say this marks Tim Burton's third and last era of his career, where he just regurgitates crap, doesn't try, doesn't care. He has fun being visual maybe, and he just enjoys the visual stuff, but he doesn't try anymore to make a good movie. And yeah, this is the movie where I realized I gave up on him. This is where I gave up on him. Or this is the movie where Tim Burton gave up on himself. And this movie is so thoroughly bad, I don't even want to talk about it. Or think about it. The Corpse. Because Tim Burton is at this point in his career a corpse. My guess is that this is based on a short story or something that he once had. Somebody fleshed it out into a feature-length film. Somebody else did all the work directing it. I don't know what involvement Tim Burton. Maybe he directed it, maybe he didn't. But of course, this is also the point, I think, where... No, it's not the first point. This is, where he just keeps hiring all his best friends. Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. But he'd been doing that for the last 5 movies, but this is where it just started to get extremely... obvious and annoying. But there's some great news, which is that I never watched it, so I love it. Sweeney Todd. I actually watched the musical when it was in a theater. I watched it many times because I used to work in a theater as an usher at the time, and so I saw it before the movie came out. And okay, whatever. I'll tell you this much: the guy that wrote the play, his name is I think Stephen Sondheim. This was the first time he ever also wrote the music for a musical. He usually just wrote the lyrics and the whatever you call it, stage play. But this was the first time he wrote the music, and the music was terrible. So the music in this movie is terrible. And without good music in a musical, what do you have? So I think I watched it once, I don't remember, and isn't that a bad enough review, if you don't remember? I don't know if it did well, and I don't care. I would only recommend this to somebody who loves the Sweeney Todd musical. Otherwise, stay away, stay far away. Tim Burton in Wonderland, because he's basically just saying, I don't even care anymore. I'm just gonna go off into Wonderland. Yeah, like just throw together a script. I don't care what it's about. I don't care what happens. Let's not pay any respect to the original writer, Lewis Carroll. We're just gonna not care and just make it, just have an easy, fun time. No hard work. And you know what? It's also misleading because it's not Alice in Wonderland. It's Alice Returns to Wonderland. At least the Return to Oz was about... It wasn't false advertising. Finding Neverland. What they didn't call it Peter Pan. This is not Alice in Wonderland. This is Alice comes back to Wonderland as an adult. When that movie Speed Racer came out, I read a review of it where the critic said, it's like watching somebody puke Skittles for 2 hours. And that's kind of how I felt about this. I only got like 10 minutes into the movie and I had to turn it off because it was just it was an overdose of colors. If you can actually sit through this movie, I think there's something wrong with you. But if Willy Wonka hadn't convinced you, or me, to never give Tim Burton another chance, well, this one, like, was, oh yeah, this, like, don't worry, Charlie and the Chocolate was no blunder. I'm doing it again, baby. You know what? I don't even think Tim Burton knew what he was doing. I don't even think he had a vision, because this doesn't even look like the kind of thing a Tim. It doesn't even look like his visual aesthetic. But guess what? The audience sent the wrong message to Burton, because I think it did very well. So he's like, okay, I'm on the right track here. I don't need to work anymore. I'm getting tired. I'm getting old. I don't want to work hard. I can just churn out bullshit for the pigs, and they'll eat it. But you'd think as an artist he'd feel embarrassed. Dark Shadows, because that's all we've got here of the Tim Burton that we know and loved. We knew and once loved. There's just these dark shadows of him. Now, this is the first of his movies where I just didn't even bother. I didn't even watch it. And I spoke to people who did watch it, and they told me, oh yes, it is as bad as you figured it would be. So don't bother. Now, if anybody ever tells you don't review a movie if you haven't seen it, this is a good example, and so is Alice in Wonderland. I'm sorry. If you burned your hand on one stove, you don't need to review the next stove with your hand to know that you'll burn your hand on it. When an artist betrays you to such a severe degree as Tim Burton did with Wonka, chocolate, and Alice, Tim Burton wandering around in Wonderland, after they've betrayed you to that point, you don't owe them another chance. They were lucky to get your attention. They should have kept it. They should have respected it. And at this point, you just read the review and you just be like, yeah, okay, that's what I thought it was going to be. I mean, people's reaction to seeing it are more interesting than the movie itself. Like, everybody that I talked to, all of them Tim Burton fans were saying, oh my god, yeah, he's just taking a vampire thing. He's doing his version of the vampire trope, just like he took his version of the Alice in Wonderland, and it's bad. It's just bad. And I'll tell you, I really like Johnny Depp, and it's a shame, you know, he was very loyal to Tim Burton right to the end. And because you know what, his agents were telling him, don't do any more Tim Burton movies. No, he's like, it's not good for your career, but Johnny Depp was loyal as hell. That's my impression. So he's just, I don't care. If Tim Burton wants me, I'm there. I bet you Johnny Depp's agents were telling him, like, no, this is career, like, this will hurt your career, you're gonna make less money if you do this. Franken Weener. Well, I bought my tickets in advance for this one, but then I didn't bother to watch it. Nope, don't care. Based on a short film, his first short film before Pee-wee's Playhouse. Maybe it's close to his heart. I don't know if he has a heart anymore. I think he's too old. This is the problem with, like, I'm 47 years old. You get too old, you start to get tired, you start to get lazy, you start to get sloppy. Oh, I guess that guy's supposed to be Vincent Price with the frog. But you know what? If you are an old and tired artist, then just stop. You know? Leave gracefully. It's like if you're too drunk and you're at a party, you leave. Just leave. It's like if you enjoyed skateboarding when you were 16, that's lovely, but please don't go skateboarding at 47 because it's just pathetic. You should, like, it's embarrassing, and maybe that's what Tim Burton keeps trying to do. I mean, I'm not saying that all elderly people, you know, I got a lot more tired when I turned 40, but it just means you have to be more careful where you use your energy and how you use your energy. You know, Tim Burton, don't make a movie every 3 years. You could wait 10 years. Work on a movie for 10 years. And then you can make something quality. You could make the best movie of your career. Big Eyes, not to be confused with Big Fishy, not to be confused with Ed Wood. So I assume this movie is like it's like a biographical movie, so it's just like probably like Ed Wood and like Big Fish, which is not exactly a biographical movie, but I didn't watch it. I've given up on Tim Burton since Alice in Wonderland. So yeah, it's probably a fun movie. It's probably interesting, but you don't get any more chances, buddy. Like, you really burned me. You burned me, and I'm mad. I'm mad at you. Or to put it less personally, the dog bit me, so I'm not going to offer my hand to the dog anymore. But I'll make it a little more personal, and I'll review the movie without even having watched it. So how do you like that, Tim Burton? Okay, so Big Eyes sucks. It's a terrible movie. Mrs. Peregrine's home for a collection of peculiar pets, curiosities, cabinet of Benjamin Buttons, and Lemony Snicket, Mrs. Lemony Snicket's series of peculiar pets, and where to find them. Is this like Tim Burton does the X-Men? Well, either way, it's going to be a disjointed mess that doesn't really make any sense. Purely visual. Tim Burton comes in for an hour. You guys do this, you guys do that. Don't care. I just want my paycheck so that I can go to the Bahamas for my vacation. I don't care about the audience. They betrayed me when they didn't go to see Batman Returns 30 years ago, so it's just another fuck you to them. In fact, I can be as lazy as Tim Burton. So instead of reviewing anything, even the past few movies that I said that I was reviewing that I didn't, I'll just read some reviews by reviewers. Franken Weener. What could have been a delightfully offbeat, darkly quirky riff on horror films, kids cinema, and the boy and his dog plot is instead a lazy, disappointing slog. Franken Weener. Very much the work of an older man revisiting the obsessions of his youth, struggling at times to reconnect with them. This is McDonald's filmmaking. Plonk it down, fry it up, slap on a new label, drop fresh tears in the cauldron, and the special sauce rarely tasted so bland. Review of Peregrine. Has some beautiful images, but like many of Burton's recent films, the story feels like an afterthought. Miss Peregrine has Tim Burton back to his full form of visionary weirdness, which is beautiful, and also his lack of a competent conclusion of storytelling, which is exhausting by this point. Dummo. Tim Burton says to himself, I'm just going to make a dumb movie this time. And so he did, and so I did not watch it. So I'll just read some reviews. It's bad enough that this overbloated, soulless imitation can't find a reason to exist, but it's all style and no substance, and even the style isn't worthy of the Tim Burton name. The new live-action remake of the Disney animated classic Dumbo is helmed by the darkly eccentric Tim Burton, and his latest film is like nothing I've ever seen from the master of juxtaposition. Safe, almost tepid, and it's monotonously boring. The new Dumbo is not blatantly bad, rather, it's a mostly bland affair that doesn't justify the effort it took to remake the film. The story moves away from being solely Dumbo's journey, and the emotions that removes can't be replaced. It's visually uninspired, despite being helmed by a bona fide visionary, Tim Burton, who has opted to give us his version of a kid-friendly movie instead of his twisted take on the circus. Another one, bringing it up to date for today's audience has left this feeling flat. The magic has left the circus. Another review. It is charmless, overly long, ugly to look at, and terribly boring. The only surprise here is how many opportunities were dropped. And I'll just add that as a 47-year-old, I saw the original Dumbo many, many times. And it's dated. Like, it was perfect for the time it was in, and you can watch it and enjoy it for that time, but I don't know how you update it. It was perfect as it was. Not so fresh Beetlejuice. So I really enjoyed this Beetlejuice movie. And lucky for Burton, Michael Keaton still has some energy in his old bones. So you can lean on him. And, it's kind of like visiting, like, look at what a high school, like, remember when I was like the quarterback in high school? So we're revisiting like the good old days of Tim Burton. And you know what? Maybe he should just keep doing this. Make Edwars Scissorhands Part 2. Everybody would go to see it. And you can't really screw it up because everybody loves the first one so much. Make a Batman 3. I don't know. Just keep churning out the Beetlejuice movie, because obviously this was your what you were good at, and nobody wants to see your other ideas. Like you're empty of ideas, but at this point, like you've shown us all your ideas. We know what you have and what you don't have. Somebody said this about George Lucas's Star Wars sequels. It's like an old man trying to write a story where, of course, as an old man, you're not going to have people running around. No, they're having Senate negotiations, because as an old man, that's what you'd be doing. So there's something to that. I mean, I guess there's something to be said for aging gracefully as an artist. Some of my favorite artists, like Bach, Dostoevsky, they wrote their best stuff in their elderly years. But it was their best because they utilized all the knowledge they had attained up till then, acquired. And Tim Burton isn't doing that. Okay, so I looked it up. Tim Burton has a net worth of $100 million. That's not much for like somebody on his caliber, right? Johnny Depp probably has way more. So he's doing these movies for money, and that's the problem. And guess what, Tim? It shows. There's got to be more graceful ways to make money and retire. If you support gays, click like. If you respect blacks, comment. If you think women are people too, click the notification bell. And if you care about sick children, subscribe.